I was halfway through my morning coffee when a grown man in dress slacks, shirtless, screaming and clutching a frozen toaster waffle in one hand and a briefcase in the other came soaring over my backyard on a zipline. He flew past like some malfunctioning suburban superhero, nearly took off the top of my head, and crash-landed in my hedge with all the grace of a flying raccoon. My dog, Marvin, barked once, looked at me like, "This ain't normal," and calmly walked back inside. That was the moment I knew something had gone horribly, hilariously wrong in our neighborhood. It wasn't a one-time prank. Over the next 15 minutes, 3 more people zipped overhead. One of them was Meredith, the HOA president, shrieking with delight like she had finally unlocked her chaotic inner child. Except her inner child was clearly powered by passive-aggressive newsletters and an unholy love of committee authority. By the time the 4th zipliner skimmed the top of my bird feeder, I'd had enough. Still wearing my robe and slippers, I walked out front, coffee mug in hand, and was greeted by a sight that could only be described as a suburban fever dream, a 100-foot steel zipline stretching from the clubhouse rooftop down to a pile of lawn chairs, pool floaties, and what looked like a plastic kiddie pool posing as a landing pad. And the whole thing ran directly over my backyard. At the base of the launch tower stood Meredith, wrapped in a neon orange sash labeled Air Traffic Controller and holding a walkie-talkie with the self-importance of someone directing space shuttles. I approached her and asked, in my most civilized tone, "Meredith, what in the cinnamon-scented hell is this?" She turned to me with a smile like she'd been waiting her entire HOA tenure to deliver this line. "It's a community recreation feature," she beamed. "Promotes wellness, engagement, and it's for the children." I looked around. There were no children in sight. Only a red-faced HOA treasurer arguing with a woman whose fanny pack had gotten caught mid-ride and now dangled like a sad balloon. "That's my backyard," I said, pointing at the aerial circus stretching over my koi pond. Meredith blinked. "Technically, your property ends at the 6-foot fence," she said with a smirk. "Airspace isn't addressed in the HOA charter, so we deemed it communal." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. Just then, another zipliner whooshed overhead with a WO and dropped a granola bar wrapper directly into my pond. And that's when the idea came. If they wanted to turn my backyard into a theme park, fine. I'd be the weather system that made their little flight path a lot less friendly. That night, I called my cousin Lana, systems engineer who works on wind turbine safety simulations. After I pitched her my idea of installing wind machines in my backyard, camouflaged and programmed to trigger when someone used the zipline, she laughed so hard she almost dropped her phone. "You want me to build a backyard hurricane simulator?" she asked. "No," I said. "I want to scare the ever-loving khakis off these people." She was in. 2 days later, 3 massive wind machines arrived at my house along with Lana and a suspiciously giddy smile. She brought her laptop, motion sensors, and a new toolset she claimed was just for fun. We worked into the night, installing the turbines and disguising them as modern art sculptures. Lana configured the sensors to activate only when zipliners were mid-flight. We even adjusted the airflow to simulate various gust scenarios ranging from breezy day to sudden crosswind chaos. We called it Operation Turbulence. The next morning, everything was set. The turbines sat quietly like innocent garden gnomes. I was on my patio, coffee in hand, when at 7:14 a.m., Meredith launched herself from the clubhouse roof like a suburban falcon. The sensors tripped, the turbines fired. A crosswind hit her like the exhale of an angry sky god. She spun midair, her legs flailing, her hair flapping like a flag in a storm. One of her sandals detached and landed with a delicate splash in my pond. She reached the landing pad in a tangle of limbs and polyester. Her sash was twisted, her sunglasses crooked, and she stumbled away like a cat that had just been through a car wash. I waved, coffee in hand. Word spread quickly. That day alone, 5 zipliners experienced unexpected atmospheric complications. One guy spun so hard he hit my fence like a windsock. Another landed backward into a decorative cactus. A video showed up on the neighborhood forum with the caption, "Haunted Zipline, watch Meredith get yeeted by nature." By that evening, the HOA called an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited, but I could hear the shouting from my backyard. Phrases like unauthorized weather events and retaliatory landscaping were tossed around like confetti. I didn't care. My lawyer said the turbines were well within local codes. They were on my property, under regulated height, powered by renewable energy and technically not obstructing the zipline. "You're not interfering," he said. "You're just making it windy." And that was only the beginning. The next morning, I was awoken by a blood-curdling, "Oh no, not again," followed by the mechanical whine of another zipliner. I rushed outside to see a man in his 70s rotating midair like a rotisserie chicken. He crash-landed in my hedge and groaned. "That's it. I'm taking the stairs next time." Operation Turbulence was now a well-oiled chaos engine. Lana swung by with a printed copy of something called the HOA Informal Zipline Safety Waiver someone had posted online. It included phrases like spiritual rebirth due to unexpected gusts and emotional weather fatigue. It was written in Comic Sans. We laughed until she triggered the sensor by accident and her clipboard got blown into the koi pond. That afternoon, Meredith showed up with a clipboard, a tape measure, and a guy named Stanley who wore a hard hat labeled safety consultant. Stanley took one look at the turbines and muttered, "Well, that's new." Meredith, now fully in Queen of Rules mode, began measuring the turbines like she was auditioning for a reality show called Code Violation or Nah. Stanley ran a wind meter test, tried to fly a paper airplane through the gust, which failed miserably, and declared, "A little spicy, but legal." Meredith's face crumpled like a paper bag under pressure. "But what about the noise?" she barked. "Quieter than your lawnmower," Stanley shrugged. Then, to my utter delight, he agreed to test the zipline himself. He climbed up with the confidence of a man who'd written parking tickets in triple digits. Launched cleanly. Hit a midair crosswind that spun him like a fidget spinner. He landed backward on the pad with a loud "OMPH." Helmet askew, hair windblown into a new geometric shape, he sat up and muttered, "I'm too old for this crap." Then he tossed his helmet to Meredith and walked off. Meredith was spiraling. She began a campaign through the HOA newsletter accusing certain residents of weaponizing the atmosphere. I replied with a bulletin titled "Weather Happens, Deal with It," featuring a cartoon tornado in sunglasses and the tagline, "Nature's gonna nature." Lana printed 100 copies and passed them out at the mailbox. Meredith tried slipping a clause into the next HOA meeting banning all outdoor electronics. But the motion was killed by my neighbor Pete, who yelled, "Start with her megaphone." The room erupted. Things escalated when I caught a teenager lurking near my turbines with a GoPro. "Who sent you?" I asked. He froze. "Aunt Meredith told me to film your illegal fans." I offered him a soda, showed him the control panel, and invited him to fly his drone through the turbulence. 10 minutes later, we had footage of the drone spinning like a blender lid. He left smiling. Desperate, Meredith renamed the Zipline Skyglide the premier HOA adventure, and brought in a taco truck for a Thrill Day fundraiser. I set up a lemonade stand on my lawn offering $15 to land in the wind zone includes grass stains. I made $40, and a guy from a stunt marketing firm gave me his business card. Then, in a final, desperate act, Meredith called the city. Unfortunately for her, the city sent Brent, Lana's ex-husband. They hadn't spoken in years, but when he saw her name on my guest Wi-Fi, he lit up. After a brief inspection and a lot of technical admiration for the turbines, Brent turned to Meredith and said, "Everything checks out. Stop wasting my time." Her face collapsed like a souffle in a thunderstorm. By the end of the week, the zipline was a disaster. People no longer screamed for joy, they screamed in fear. Meredith doubled down, hosting one final event, the last flight, complete with a confetti cannon and her printed speech titled "Karen's Legacy" in the sky. That day, she climbed the launch tower like a martyr. I waited until she was mid-flight, arms stretched, cape flowing, then tapped my remote. The turbines activated. She spun. Her cape tangled. The confetti cannon misfired directly into her face. She hit the landing pad sideways, landed in a bush, stood up, and declared, "I meant to do that." The applause was confused and deeply ironic. Later that night, she was removed from her position. Officially. Unanimously. I didn't even have to vote. 2 weeks later, she moved away. Started a bakery, if you can believe it. It's called Scone to Fly. The logo is a muffin clinging to a zipline cable. Honestly, it's perfect. Lana patented the turbine system. She calls it the Breeze Guard. I get 10% and veto power on the logo. Fair deal. One night, as we sat on my patio, sipping lemonade and watching the sunset over my now serene, Zipline-free yard, she asked, "Do you miss the drama?" I smiled. Not even a little. The wind spun gently through the turbines. The koi swam lazily. And for the first time in a long time, the sky was quiet. No capes. No tacos. No HOA war cries. Just peace. And a very satisfying breeze.